Alrighty, next one up here. Brian Beltsky trims NVIDIA as the stock hits another all-time high.
A new all-time high. This is the first time that stock's been over $900 a share. $917 is where it is now. That's a three.
Who told you? Who told you a long time ago NVIDIA's on the road to 1,000? Who told you? I did.
Gainer. Any drop in this stock is quickly scooped up, and that's the lesson of what we're learning around NVIDIA.
Yeah, I think if you're long the name, the only thing to really do is what I've been trying to do, which is make sure the position doesn't get too big, that it swamps the rest of your holdings. But outside of that, this has been a get out of the way situation. Like I don't know why you'd want to fight with this thing. I know there are people that have this thing where like whatever is going up and making people money, something must be wrong, and therefore they want to fade it or they want to think it's roulette.
Hey, JB, I gotta call you out, sir. You sold part of your NVIDIA position a while back, remember? I know you regret selling every share of that stock.
And it's going to go black, 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 black. Okay, today it has to be red. You're welcome to play that game. I don't believe in it. I've never seen anyone do it successfully. So I think the attitude most people have had about this stock is own it, understand what's going on here is like once in a lifetime, appreciate it, and manage the position. So that's what I'm here trying to do. So far, so good. No complaints.
Yeah, Mizuho today takes the price target to $1,000 from $850. When you eclipse one target, you just simply bump yours up.
2K targets are coming. 1750s are coming.
Almost sounds a bit gratuitous, to be honest with you. You suggest it's tiny, 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 the trim that is, and you're not trying to be too cute. But nonetheless, this stock is just astounding.
Brian, why do you hate NVIDIA?
Brian, why are you bearish? Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Thank you. We're humbled by that. You know, we've owned NVIDIA for 7 years, and Josh nailed it. When you're looking at running portfolios, as we do, and we have concentrated positions, and in our large cap portfolios, when you own 45 to 50 names, you run the danger of this position getting too big, especially with the run up. So are we being cute? I never have a problem with being accused of being cute. So let's take 50 basis points off. And if and when, like we think the market's a little frothy here, when the market comes back in, we'll add again.
Do you think the market's too frothy?
We do. And we have a real issue with everyone chasing the market, the herd mentality. What's really interesting for us, the majority of our competitors are saying right now what we said a year and a half ago. And the issue is, I think, playing the momentum game, and I think straying from their process and discipline as strategists and just trying to play the upside. Now, just to be clear, we continue to believe that U.S. stocks are in a 25-year secular bull market. Within secular bulls, you have cyclical bears and cyclical bulls. The cyclical bull started in October of 2022. We've been on record on that since November of 2022. I have no problem with losing a little bit of, let's say, 50 to 100 points off our 5,100 target. But remember, we came out with our 2024 forecast in November of last year, and we said our bull case is 5,500. I still think we can get to our bull case at some point, but let's take a little bit of a breather here. We have too many bulls right now.
Are we really that frothy in an environment where it's kind of underscored today? Rates are coming down. They're going to come down further. Earnings, at least as it relates to some of the largest multiple stocks in the market, are showing up. So maybe we're not that frothy as it would seem in an environment that is fast changing from a rate standpoint and an earnings standpoint.
Our forecast all along is that the first half of the year that we're going to see rates around 4%. That's where we are. Are we frothy on a near-term basis? Yeah. According to history, in terms of second years of bull markets, we're about 700 basis points ahead of the average bull market in 4 months into the second year over the last 13 bull markets. So with everybody agreeing that we're in a bull market and everybody trying to play this momentum game, when everybody agrees that things are positive, I want to go the other way. Just like when everyone's super negative, I want to be contrarian and be positive.
I feel like there are still a lot of bears out there who are afraid to change their view now because they've been negative for so long.
It's true.
No, I think that's true. On the true bears that are always bearish, right? But you've seen these fringe people talk about being bullish, even though their kind of speak is actually quite bearish. So we are still very bullish longer term. We're long-term investors in U.S. stocks. We think we can get stocks a little bit cheaper over the next few months.
Jimmy, UBS today says price momentum as a style is, in their words, abnormally overbought. They point to semis being at the top of that list. plays off of NVIDIA. I could go down the list of the names that have just ripped.
And, if you're scared of the market potentially going down, maybe you feel it's, we're going up too much, too fast, too many people hitting 6 figures, 7 figures, and 8 figures in their portfolios, that's a perfect time to do what? Hedge. Hedge your portfolio a little bit. Put on a few hedges in your portfolio just in case the market tanks, over the next, few weeks or few months, if you feel like that. And it gives you a little, a little comfort. I have my hedges on. I look at them as insurance. I want to probably throw the money away, and that's fine. And if not, it's going to be there to make me a ton of money in the short term that I can then flip into long positions, right? So, that's just easy little money hedges.
Roared, you trimmed NVIDIA too. Now, if we're having some sort of melt up, what are we supposed to do with it?
Ride it. The trim of NVIDIA was factually a mistake. I don't think we need to spend much breath on that.
Yeah, so all of them trimmed NVIDIA, right? They all regret it. I guarantee you deep down inside, because the stock's gone up a lot more since they trimmed recently. And it's going to go up more. Like, they're going to regret all these trims. At the end of the day, the stock's on its way to 1,000. It's probably on its way to 1,500. And who knows, maybe even 2K before all the dust settles. And, the true top in upside earnings actually stops in this whole story.
I'm very much with Brian on this, that it is frothy. I think we are in a melt-up. Now, there's no definition of that, but I will tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride it until I get a distributive day. And when that happens, I'm going to trim. I'm going to trim in the semiconductor space, which is the epicenter, in my opinion, of this melt-up. But I'm not going to try to anticipate it. That was a mistake with NVIDIA, obviously. And this thing it could turn tomorrow. Who knows what the jobs report is going to be? Or it could go another 10% higher. And my feeling on this is that on a distributive day, if I end up trimming Qualcomm or NXP Semiconductors on a down 4% day, you can look at the charts of either of those companies, because it's not just NVIDIA that's been melting up. These stocks, look at them 1 year or year to date. They are turning exponential. So if I end up giving up 4 percentage points on stocks that are up 60%, believe me, I can live with that. But for right now, ride it. Don't try to anticipate it. It can go on far longer than you think.
I agree. It's a sector-wide melt-up. And just to put some meat on
you've been nervous about the NASDAQ more than most.
Yeah. So mainly mega cap tech.
Which, as Liz said, the buyers continue to come in. You see, like Meta today's up 4%.
Yeah, Meta and Microsoft
NVIDIA's
look
up.
the best
Apple's
right now.
now trying to go positive. I know the underperformers like the Teslas of the world and the Alphabets and the Apples, but at some level, and maybe we're at it now, or we hit it after the sell-off we got earlier this week, the dip buyers say enough is enough. These are the stocks that you want to be in because of exponential growth in their earnings power.
Everybody talking about the market's too frothy, too risk on, right? Too risk on. 3 guys on that panel have trimmed NVIDIA recently. Tell me that's too frothy. If we were in a real, max risk level, these guys wouldn't be trimming NVIDIA. They'd be holding on to every share, or they'd be trading in shares for call options and playing for even more upside. The fact that people are like, I'm scared, I got to trim this, got to trim. All these guys trimming NVIDIA, I'm going to sell some, I'm going to sell some, I'm going to sell some. That's a sign of scaredness, of even borderline bearishness when you're out there doing that, right? If you're max risk on, you're like, I'm not selling one freaking share of this stock. I need to own calls in this stock, right?
Relative to AI.
To be clear, you didn't really get a dip in Meta or Microsoft. You got one. Apple, 17% below its 50-day. That's a dip. The rest, not quite yet a dip. But semis are just across the board. I was looking at some tickers. TSM up 5%. AVGO up 3, ASML up 4. If you look at a 10-year annualized basis, the SMH is up 28%. That's annualized returns for one industry group within tech. That's more than double the S&P 500, which, by the way, hasn't had a bad decade. The S&P is 13% annualized over 10 years. So this is a group of winning stocks that continues to work its way higher. The fundamentals are not changing day to day to the degree that these stock prices and market caps are changing.
That's what Wolf says
today. That's what a melt-up is.
Yeah. I don't want to speak for all the semiconductor companies, but for NVIDIA, it's hard not to say they deserve every gain that stock has had, just to be honest. The rest of the semis, I don't know. I don't want to speak for those. But in terms of NVIDIA, it deserves every single gain that stock gets day after day after day because the numbers are that impressive. When they're reporting these 1,000% up net incomes year over year, 700% net incomes up year over year, you're going to tell me it doesn't deserve every single gain that stock gets? Yes, it does. 4 safe stocks that will 2x or more in the next 12 to 36 months. That's what we're about to get into in this video here today, folks. Let's get into this. First one up here is NVIDIA. Yeah, I know a lot of people are like, no, they've been trying to top call this stock since it was 150, 250, 350, 450, 550. They keep trying to top call it. The problem is they don't, all these people trying to top call this stock over this past year, and they're still trying to do it. They don't even understand what's actually going on with NVIDIA's business model right now. And they don't understand that NVIDIA's business model is actually one of the safest business models in the entire world at the moment. And the reason being is, guess who's NVIDIA's customers are? The biggest customers. Guess who they are? They're the strongest, most well-capitalized companies in the entire world. They're the type of companies that you wish, if you ran a business, these would be your customers. Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon. Now, NVIDIA's got a ton of customers outside of those, but those are its biggest customers. These companies have unlimited funds, and they're already committed in their budgets for 2024, massive expansion in terms of how much they're going to be spending on chips, and guess who they're going to be spending the money with? It's NVIDIA. NVIDIA's not the only one. AMD obviously can benefit a little bit this year as well, but it's just small. It's small potatoes, just to put it quite frank, compared to how much NVIDIA really benefits from this. So NVIDIA is selling shovels to the strongest, most well-capitalized companies in the entire world. And I mean, that's the ultimate. That's literally the ultimate, right? Imagine you're a credit card company and you got to hope that Joey keeps his job down at the Whirlpool factory or he's not going to pay his bill, right? That's a little scary. When you're selling chips to Microsoft, who's going to invest billions of dollars regardless, that's pretty comforting because they're good for it. They're gonna pay you your money, right? No, the other thing I'll say about this whole situation is there's a false assumption that everybody is just going to magically catch up to NVIDIA or something like that, right? And you just don't understand technology if you think like everybody's just going to magically catch up to NVIDIA. Like, there's a lot of these same companies want to create chips, and they'll be able to create chips, but not to the level that NVIDIA has. They're trying to catch up to where NVIDIA was, right? Not to where NVIDIA is going to be 3 years out, 5 years from now. So it's flawed thinking. It's like you're running behind Usain Bolt and you're like, I'm going to catch up to him. No, his lead's probably actually expanding right now while you're getting further and further back. You think you're catching up, but really his lead is expanding over you further and further and further. And so that's the way I'll put it in regards to this whole situation. And anybody that really understands the tech behind this realizes you don't just magically create an H100, H200, or what NVIDIA is probably going to show off next year or the year after, the H300, right? Now, speaking about H200, this is about to essentially launch in terms of, start to hit NVIDIA's numbers here very shortly. And you're going to start to see it in a major way start to hit its numbers in the back half of this year in 2024. Now, the H200 is much more powerful than the H100 chip. And this is going to be something that, guess what? All these big dog companies are going to be upgrading to. They're going to want H200s. H100s are cool, and that's awesome. But if you need to be in the front of the game, then you're going to have to have H200s. H200s, let's just think about this logically. Do you think NVIDIA is going to sell those chips for a cheaper price than it was selling the H100s? Well, remember, the H100s were reportedly going for anywhere between $25,000 and $40,000 each. So, the moral of the story is the H200 is likely going to be selling for a minimum of $40,000 each, right? Which means NVIDIA's margins could even expand again over the next year to year and a half. And its revenue is going to obviously continue to increase dramatically, and the profitability will increase dramatically as well. And keep in mind, NVIDIA is going to sell every single H100 they can get their hands on this year. It's just the next level is now the H200 at this point in time, right? Now, another false thing that I see a lot of people doing is they try to compare this company to where it used to be in terms of, well, the stock price has gone up so much. Well, guess what? The company's business model is not even in the same category that it used to be in. If we go back to the January quarter of 2023, they did $6 billion of revenue. This most recent quarter, they did over $22 billion of revenue. That's, well over a 3x. That's nearly a 4x in their revenue. Gross profit went from under $4 billion to nearly $17 billion. That's over a 4x in gross profit there. Absolutely unbelievable. This is not even the same company now at this point in time, right? Now, the other great thing for NVIDIA is they're still growing every single quarter, not just on a year-over-year basis, but on a sequential basis as well. Now, someday this is going to end, and they're not going to be growing on a sequential basis anymore, and that will be a day when NVIDIA's stock price will potentially get hit, because people will be like, oh boy, the sequential growth is over. But for now, it is growth, growth, growth. They went from $6 billion revenue to 7.1 to 13.5 to 18.1 to this latest quarter over $22 billion. This next quarter they'll report is probably going to be 25.5, somewhere around there, probably $25.5 billion of revenue. Maybe higher than that, we'll see. And so the company keeps growing on a sequential basis quarter after quarter, and then gross profit, same exact situation, from 3.8 billion to then 4.6, 9.4, 13.4, and nearly $17 billion in gross profit in this latest quarter, right? And so this is going to continue, in my opinion, for at least this year in 2024. Now, the question mark is 2025 for NVIDIA. Does the company at some point in 2025 stop the sequential growth when it comes to gross profit and revenues? That's a potential. I think that's the big wild card. I think by the time you get to probably 2026, I would say there's probably a pretty high probability of that. 2025 is question mark. So this year, I think we're good. I think in terms of revenue and gross profit and net income going up every single quarter after quarter after quarter, we're still safe as far as that goes. And so there's nothing to worry about in regards to that, right? Now, also the company's operating income is increasing much more rapidly than their revenues and their gross profit. Operating income, for instance, over 10x'd on a year-over-year basis. And then if you look at their net income, it nearly 10x'd on a year-over-year basis here recently. So when your bottom line is increasing much more rapidly than your top line or your gross profit, that's a very good sign and very good signal overall. Now, here's the next part of the story that matters significantly. The company has now had double beats 5 straight quarters. The last 3 quarters have been insane double beats. 61-cent beat on EPS, 63-cent beat on EPS, 53-cent beat on EPS, $2.4 billion beat on revenue, $2 billion beat, $1.5 billion beat. So what this company's proving is quarter in and quarter out, they're coming through in their beaten numbers. Yeah, they're going to put out their projections. Those projections are going to likely beat whatever analysts are expecting, but then they're going to come through and then beat it on top of that, which is just ridiculous. And they're doing this quarter in and quarter out. At some point, this will end, but for right now, it is just quarter in and quarter out. Now, if you know this company is coming in and they keep beating guides, right? They keep beating where analysts are expecting the company to be. And then they come in and then beat those next expectations that analysts then project out. Then guess what? Analysts are probably going to be far off in terms of their EPS projections for the company for this fiscal year we're in right now and next year as well, right? Now, the company's trading far too cheap in general based upon the growth rates that this company has. Even if it has a fraction of the growth this company has right now, still, it's trading way too cheap at 37 times. This current year we're in, forward P, that's way too low, way too low. Even like I said, even if this company's growth was not even remotely close to where it's at, it's still too low for this company. Now, once again, analysts, this is based upon analyst projections. Do you think they're really doing $24.59 of EPS for this year? I mean, analysts have been massively wrong 5 straight quarters, but really insanely wrong last 3 quarters. So they're probably going to be wrong again. So there's maybe NVIDIA does a 26, a 28, maybe a $30 of EPS this year, right? Maybe a $32 of EPS, which guess what? Then puts it at even a far lower forward P than what it says right there at 37, which is once again already far too low for this company, right? Now, on top of that, 7 straight quarters of much higher EPS. And I don't see this ending at any point, at least in 2024. They went from 51 cents of EPS to then 58 cents, 88 cents, $1.09, 270, 402, 516. This current quarter we're in right now, I mean, lowest expectations I would say is probably 550, but there's a decent probability they could do $6 plus of EPS. In this next quarter, they're going to report, right? And then probably pushing towards $7 or $8 and $8 to $9 the following quarter. So, when those H200s hit, just look out, okay? Look out when those H200s start to hit. So the moral of the story is EPS keeps going up on a sequential basis and isn't going to stop, at least in the short term, right? So overall, I will say, for NVIDIA, the day of reckoning will be coming for this company. But it's not coming in 2024. When I say the day of reckoning, I'm talking about what the bears talk about. The 50% type decline in this stock, where over a 6 or 12 month span, NVIDIA stock goes 50% down, 50% plus. That happens to NVIDIA. It's happened before. It will happen again. The day of reckoning will come for NVIDIA. But it's not in 2024. This is another year of ridiculous growth, of ridiculous beats for this company, and at the end of the day, very shortly, people will be trampling over themselves to pay $1,000 for NVIDIA stock. Then they're going to be trampling over themselves to pay $1,250, and then they're going to be trampling themselves over to pay over $1,500 for this stock. And we're not talking about over the next 10 years. I'm talking in the very short term. That's going to happen. And as this company continues to come in, beat, people understand the story more. They're going to be willing to pay more and more and more for this stock. So when I look at NVIDIA, it is set up very, very well for at least the next year. After that, we can talk. But for this next year, it's you just got to get out of the way of it. That's all I can say about that. Okay. Alrighty. So that's first one up here.